situation,
不称其为首都。
the capital will not be capital.
北京市的工作没有办法做，国务院的工作
Work
也没，
cannot be done in Beijing.
所以是非常严重的。
This is very serious.
为了
In order to
正常秩
restore
序，
the normal
为
order
了
of
维
society
护社会治安，
and also to
为了
protect
稳定北
the
京市的
stability of
局面
Beijing,
该恢复正常秩序，解放军不得已
the PLA
开一部分进驻北京附近。
have already sent some troops to Beijing. We have already sent some PLA troops to Beijing.
刚才各位来看到路上摆的军车，
Just now you saw the
就是
army
解放军
trucks
外面
of
进
PLA.
入北京市附近的，
These are the trucks that have
这是
just
完
come
全处于不得
into
已的
Beijing city.
情况。
This is
因
something
为
that
北京市的警力
we have to do.
已经无法维持北京市的秩序，而且呢，北京市的武警、公安
And now the
干警
police of
这一
Beijing
个月啊，差不多都是连夜在奋战，
has been working consecutively these days for the
带了
past
病
month.
生了病啊，
Some people even get sick.
没有办法，昼夜值班，
They have to work day and night
2、3天不睡觉，
and didn't sleep for 2 or 3
所以
days.
这样子没有一部分解放军
So without the support of PLA men
维持北京市的
to restore the
治安啊
normal
要
order
恢复
of
这
Beijing,
个治安是，我们认为是很困
that
难
would
的。
be extremely difficult.
解放军进驻北京附近，绝不是对付学生，
We have armies sent to Beijing not to fight with the students,
而是为了恢复
But
北京市的正常
but to restore the normal order of
生活
Beijing.
秩序和工作秩序，同时也保护
Meanwhile,
一些重要的部门，
some important
还有一些
offices will be
For
protected.
those stations and cable companies cutting away for a brief timeout, you're watching Central China TV on CNN. We'll continue in a moment.
来的，不是来对付学生的。
Okay, the army troops have come to Beijing.
Represent the party. Well, the fact of the matter is, Zhao Ziyang is the Communist Party leader in this country, but for the past few hours we've been getting reports that Zhao Ziyang has resigned. And from Beijing, the Associated Press has moved a story saying that the communist government here has declared a state of martial law in the face of the pro-democracy demonstrations.
Troops that have been deployed to stop them, entering Tiananmen Square, bringing their demands for democracy to the heart of the capital. It was a powerful statement of the students' belief in freedom of assembly, a right guaranteed by the Chinese Constitution. It was a significant victory over Communist Party leaders who had forbidden the students to demonstrate. The mood was upbeat and happy. The crowds even cheered truckloads of young soldiers they had forced to retreat. Earlier in the day, when the march began, many had feared violence. Some teachers formed lines to keep students on campus. One university president pleaded with students not to leave, telling them they could be hurt. But they marched anyway. They chanted their slogans for freedom of the press and honesty in government, and won the support of many onlookers. Local citizens jammed street corners and balconies and cheered them on. Some joined in. Mao Zedong used to say that power comes from the barrel of a gun. But today's leaders are reluctant to use force against the students because they are China's future. And to crack down on them could turn many others against the party. In fact, the government agreed, huddled in small groups to debate strategy for their movement for democracy, and held an election to choose their own representative. Some said the election was a first step in forming a coalition of student leaders to meet with the government. But the government moved to preempt them, using state-run television to broadcast a meeting between hand-picked students and a government spokesman. The spokesman urged them to stop their boycotts and demonstrations against the government, lest the nation fall into chaos. But even this hand-picked group ended up asking tough questions and insisted they should be allowed to continue their campaign for honest government. The government wants to prevent any more demonstrations it cannot contain, like a march here Thursday that ended with more than 100,000 people, mostly students joined by ordinary citizens, breaking through police lines and bringing their protest to Tiananmen Square. Tonight, the students rejected the so-called dialogue as a sham and said the government must meet with representatives they select or face a widening protest. Todd Carroll, ABC News, Beijing.
And during an informal news conference in a parking lot, they said the government wasn't fooling anyone. This young man said it's fine to talk, but the government has to make some real changes. Like many Chinese intellectuals...
Main boulevard out of Tiananmen Square through the center of Beijing clogged with close on 1 million people, taking up the students' call for greater Gorbachev-style democracy. Today, government workers, miners, teachers, the young and the old, shop assistant and medical staff, they all joined in, demanding the leadership listen. Each banner expressed the same feelings in a different way. Tonight, the official line towards the protests seems to be changing slowly but perceptibly. State television reported the scale of the demonstrations in graphic detail. Deng Xiaoping's exhortation last month to crush the protests no longer stood. There was a further televised appeal for restraint. A commentator read a statement from Communist Party leader Zhao Ziyang. It affirmed the students' patriotic spirit and pledged concrete steps for greater democracy and the crushing of corruption. That appeal cut no ice with the students. They continued to demand televised negotiations between senior government officials and the leaders of the new independent student movement. Had Mr. Gorbachev ventured onto the roof of the Great Hall, this is what he would have seen. With 1 million protesters outside the hall, one message relating to Soviet perestroika had particular relevance.
Porter said the students are forcing the leadership to take action, to listen and to take action. Do you believe they are?
I think they are. First, you have national television and the media covering it, and of course it's controlled by the government. That's meeting partway a student demand. Zhao Ziyang and Li Peng, the General Secretary and the Premier, have made conciliatory statements, perhaps out of conviction and certainly out of a feeling the way the wind is blowing. So the momentum and the size of these demonstrations, the composition, the spread throughout other parts of the country, have made them make some gestures, and they're going to have to continue to do so, I believe.
Kenneth Lieberthal, you've just China 3.5 years there as U.S. ambassador. Can you believe what you're seeing?
It's astonishing. I knew there was considerable malaise in the society, but I never thought it would demonstrate itself as we've seen in these extraordinary images tonight.
Try to explain to an American audience which is not as familiar as you are with what's been happening over the last few years, what is so extraordinary?
First, the size of the protests, 1 million people, but more importantly, the composition. The fact that you have the Ted Koppels of China, if you will, we just talked to, speaking out. These are people that have been speaking the party line for many years. The fact that journalists writing for the People's Daily, the party organ, are speaking out. In addition to the workers, the old people, professors, think tank people, and it's spreading to other cities as well. It's in at least 20 other provinces by latest count. So it's the composition, the width of this, and the courage of what these people are saying and doing.
What specifically? I mean, when you talk about the courage of what they're saying, what they're doing,